Good afternoon. We're here for our second lecture, our first lecture for week 2. Selena, I've done all of the grading. It looks like you were a little confused on the directions on Part A. Part A is all about your actual portfolio, what you've been putting on Behance throughout all of your courses and things like that. You need to send me that link so that I can give you feedback and tell you what you need to fix, how to make it better, and fill in any holes that happen to be in your portfolio. Since you're a web design student, most likely you have quite a few holes because you don't actually have anything on there for web design itself. And we need to make sure we get that sort of stuff into your portfolio. So you're going to need to send me the link so that I can give you that feedback and we can work on it. And by the end of this class, you have an awesome web design portfolio to show your potential employers or potential clients if you plan to do freelancing, that sort of thing. That is what part A of the assignment is supposed to be. It's revising your portfolio and going through all the feedback that I give you and planning out how you're going to get through the next 4 weeks and get everything done. Part B of this week's assessment is correcting your resume based off the feedback I gave you in week 1, redoing the resume, making it look good, and writing a cover letter. Now, your instructions for assessment B tell you that you can pick one of the job listings in the folder, and you've got a little button you can click there that will download some job posting. But all of those postings are graphic design related. What I would like you to do is to get on Monster Jobs or any other job listing website and find a listing for a web designer and write your cover letter based off that job listing, and make sure you give me a link to that job listing as well in the comments when you submit it. Since you were a little confused about assessment A last week, normally this lecture would be all about giving you feedback and critiquing it and setting a plan to add in the things that need to fill in the gaps and things like that. But since you didn't get that turned in, we're just going to kind of do some reviewing today. We're going to talk about the basic design techniques, hierarchy, typography, grids, baseline grids, paragraph styles, master pages, that sort of thing. Designers need to make very intentional decisions when it comes to prioritizing content. Where do you want your audience to look first? What is the call to action that you need to draw attention to? Hierarchy guides the user from one element to the next, ideally in a flow that corresponds to the content's message. You need to also keep in mind that if you give visual importance or weight to too many elements, everything becomes flat and there's no longer any hierarchy there. It's like saying you have 10 favorite flavors of ice cream. Elements should not have to compete for attention. Let the content shine and make sure your graphic elements don't distract. And that's true for how you set up your portfolio. Your web design stuff should attract way more attention than, say, stuff like your graphic design examples that you have in there. Your web design stuff should come first, and it should have a bigger hierarchy, simply because it's more important. It is absolutely degree-based. Excuse me, my allergies are acting up. I have a really badly dry throat today. In typography headlines, they should be the biggest, most important. When somebody clicks on a portfolio picture to read about it, make sure you have headlines in there that, say, project details should be a headline, and then a little paragraph explaining what the point of that project was, what problem you were solving. That sort of thing. They should be the biggest, the boldest. If you have subheads, depending on how you format your portfolio, hopefully at this point you've gone in and you've looked at some web design portfolios. If you haven't, give me a second here because we should probably, I want to show you that. I'm going to have to pull up Behance. So, and let me share my screen with you here. Okay, these are some web design portfolios on Behance from other professionals. Let's take a look at MindSpot. Let's see how they've laid it out. You've got a nice heading there. They've used the logo. And they've told you what this is. It's UI UX design for corporate websites of MindSpot. MindSpot Space is a modern people dedicated to development of the skills of awareness and emotional intelligence. And then they have laid out, they've mocked it up, and you can see how they used background pictures. This is all very, very professional. And that's what you want your portfolio to be. They've mocked up a little example of what it would look like on a laptop. And they talk about their colors. They talk about their typography, their icon sets, the different icons they used on that website. And then they show the main page. Then it just keeps going to all the other pages and their contact page. This is the kind of layout you want for your portfolio. This is what your potential employers, potential customers are going to be expecting. This one, they have a heading of homepage. Let's see what else they got on here. And then down here, it tells about the website. And then you get into their color scheme, the font family they're using, and then you have your pages. This is a scaling website. It looks like they've got a little bit of a prototype going on here that shows you the different things and how the website reacts. And then they've shown you your responsive designs, how they look. It looks like this website must have like some sort of gallery for images and stuff. So they're showing you how that looks and how that works. And it just goes through each page and shows you the layout of it. This is pretty good. Let's see if we can see another one in here. Let's go. Let's look here at Connor's page. There are some websites, there are some apps, app design, another website, and then he's listed all of his graphic design below. But you can see here that the basic format has been followed here. This was a website redesign. The goal was to redesign the entire website. The creation of the well-designed website can significantly increase the amount of customers that a business gets. And he shows you the mock-up at the homepage of the website. And it talks about the UI UX design process where he's shown you his sketches. And then he talks about his color choice, his background, new logo, menu bar, background color scheme, the style. The first draft of the style shows a colored and basic idea of what the website would look like. Finalizing. This is where he shows you his process, how he went from one thing to another. After having basic idea of what I wanted the website to look like, tinkering with the colors, shading, and just a few other minor changes leads to a finalized website design. This is his final design, and you can see it differs a little bit from the original concept because he went through some ideas and things like that. So now you get this website. Then he takes you through and shows you the flat process. And I believe his flat process, yes, is an XD. You can see over here he used XD, which will allow the users to actually click on buttons so they can go through and see the entire website and what it looks like. And you can see the Contact Us page by clicking on Contact Us. And he did all of this using XD. He didn't code this website. This website is not coded, and I don't think there's a GitHub link on this one. No, there's not. So it's not coded yet. He just did the prototype for the website. Now, there is one. His downtown restaurant website, however, is coded. And he put a link in here. He told the customer what it was, told the user what it was, what he's been doing. And he also put a link to his GitHub account where you could see the actual code for this website and see his coding skills. All of his pages are here. So you could click on one and it would take you and show you all the code for that actual website. Otherwise, it takes you through his wireframe, each page layout, and then we have another XD mockup where you've got your home, your menu, your music community, the About Us, and a microbrew page. So this is the kind of thing you want to do with your portfolio. You just don't want a simple picture. You need to tell the audience what they're looking at. And that means the same thing for any of your events or graphic design stuff. Those are good skills to show because they show that you're proficient in Photoshop and Illustrator, which are the two largest programs used in web design. You'll be using them to create banners and icons and things like that. So you need to show that you're proficient. And one of the easiest ways to do that is make sure you don't just show a flat design. Mock it up so it looks real world. So it looks real life. They can see that and make that connection. Because that looks much better than just showing a picture of a flat design. If you mock them up, they will look much better. And you can see he tells about each project and what he did and how he got to where his final image. This is the mock-up of the poster he made of a billboard. And he talks about each one of them. It doesn't have to be a book. Just a few sentences that, you know, tell what the project is, how you came up with your design idea, that sort of thing. And you want to make sure it's real world. Mock it up on something so that it gives that real world feel. Because that will make any design look 10 times better than it does as a flat design. That allows the user to make a connection and understand what they're looking at, and it just simply makes the design look better. You can take a really horrible design and mock it up and it look much better. Doesn't mean it's going to turn into a fantastic design, but it will look much better than it did as just a simple flat design. So make sure everything in your portfolio is mocked up. And you need to have those sections where it talks about what the project is and how you reached your design solution. It definitely needs to be more in depth on your web design stuff. You need to talk about the color scheme you chose and the typography you chose and the hierarchy on the website, your UI UX design. That's where all of that comes in. Talk about the things you did to increase the UI and the UX and what was important there and that sort of thing. Visually, you need to design so the viewers can visually see the most important part of the design, the call to action, images, headlines, etc. The rest of the page should lead the eye through the design using grids, colors, typography, etc., so the viewer can easily read the page while being visually stimulated. That's where the pictures come in. The text is what explains to them just how good you are at what you do. And for you, that is convincing potential customers or employers that you are a web designer and you're good at it, that you have an understanding of UI and UX design, that you have an understanding of HTML and CSS and JavaScript and PHP and ASP.NET and so forth. You have to convince them with what's in your portfolio, because a resume only goes through so far. A resume is what gets your portfolio looked at. A portfolio is what gets you hired. The resume isn't going to be what gets you hired for the job. It's going to be the portfolio. Your portfolio is going to be what gets you hired or gets you a client or customer. Your portfolio is the most important piece that you will walk away from college with, because it's going to be what gets you the job. That degree is not going to automatically get you a job. That resume is not going to automatically get you a job. Your portfolio is going to be what gets you a job. So it's very, very important that you spend the next 3 weeks really concentrating on your portfolio and making it the best it can possibly be. Think about your grid and composition design. Grids add structure and order to designs and can be useful methods for achieving good proportioning among elements in your work. Now, Behance, thankfully, already sets everything up in a grid, so it makes it pretty easy. But you need to make sure you're going back and checking the designs that are already there that may need to be fixed or made better. Make sure you're looking at things like hierarchy on those designs and your grid composition on those designs and things like that, so that you can make those adjustments and make that piece look even better in your portfolio, because you've learned a lot since you've done each one of those projects and placed it in your portfolio. So you're going to have to go back and touch up the things, maybe add some stuff or take away some stuff or correct some things. Even if you've got perfect grades on some of that stuff, does not mean it's a perfect design. It simply means that you met the criteria for that specific assignment. Doesn't mean it's an excellent design. And you've learned a lot from class to class to class that you should be able to go back and look at that stuff and say, oh, there's a problem there. I need to fix this. This can look better. And then, of course, I'm here to do that exact same thing. As soon as you send me your Behance link, I can get started on giving you feedback on what's already in your Behance portfolio. As I'm sure you remember, a grid is made up of vertical and horizontal lines, which break the page into parts. Web design is definitely on a grid structure. The structure is there to shape the content into proportions that are pleasing to the eye. Make it easy to follow, makes it easy to scan. Typography. The art of technique of arranging type, it is central to graphic design and is one of the fundamental parts of a designer's education. And it's not just fundamental to graphic design, it's fundamental to web design. It's what sets designers apart from other artists, painters, illustrators, photographers, web designers, programmers, etc. Is picking a font that works, not a font that just looks good. And I'm sure you've learned that by now. It's not about just picking a font that looks good, that has a wow factor, because that font is useless if the user can't read it. And that means if it takes them more than that split second to read it, that font is useless. They aren't going to spend that time trying to figure out what that says. They're going to hit the back button and go to another website. In web design, font is probably more important than in graphic design. Because in graphic design, users will hold on to that sheet of paper and figure out what it says. Well, they will spend a little more time trying to figure out what that font says than a user looking at a website will. You have a split second. If they can't read what's on the page, they are hitting the back button and going to another page. The website was meant to be convenient. And putting difficult or hard to read fonts on a web page is not convenient. That means they have to slow down and they have to take the time to figure it out. And that's not convenient to the user. And so they're going to go find another page. And therefore, the design of that web page you made may look awesome, but the website itself is useless because no one's going to use it. Tips for good graphic design, good typography in your designing is to pay attention to your leading. It makes it easy or hard to read. You want to pay attention to your measures. If lines are too long, it makes the text hard to visually travel. Too short and there's too much eye movement. The reader will not be able to pay attention to the content. Look at these paragraphs and the way they're formatted. Good. Bad. And lines too close, very bad. Now, in web design, you need to keep in mind that users expect a little bit more space than they do in print design, simply because it's easier to scan on a monitor. There's a little bit more white space there. Because reading on a computer monitor or a cell phone monitor or a tablet monitor, reading on screen is much harder on the eyes and brain than it is to read from a piece of paper. Due to the glare from the screen, the shakiness, the fuzziness, that sort of thing. So adding just a slight bit more leading than you would on a print design, on a web design, is a must. Just give them that little bit of extra space and it helps their eyes scan a little bit better than on paper. Using too many fonts is bad. Alignment is important to text as it is to your overall design. The best alignment to use is left, right, or center. Justified makes the space in text look odd. Very true, and it's even true in web design. Yeah, some things are great justified, but you're going to use justified, and you can. It just depends on the paragraph, depends on the text. Make sure you go back and look for any strange gaps in the text, because if you have those strange gaps, it's going to confuse your user, and it makes it harder for them to read and follow along with the text. So if you have those strange gaps, then you want to take that justified out and use the left align or something like that. You want to make sure you create strong hierarchy in your layout. Bold, dark type for headings, slightly smaller, lighter types for subheadings. Lightest, smallest type for your main text. Limit your font faces to about 2. If you're going to use multiple fonts, then you need to keep it about 2. That doesn't include the type that you use in your logo. The logo, whatever font you use in your logo, does not count as a font face on your design. I'm talking about fonts for your headings and your paragraphs and things like that. If you're going to use multiple fonts, you need to make sure you keep it at 2 and not more than 2, because then it starts to get confusing and it's very distracting when they're having to go through each one of these fonts, because every time they see a new font, their brain has to process those words in a different way. So if you're asking them to process that text in 3 or 4 or 5 ways, it's suddenly taking them longer to read it. And it's distracting, so they go find another site. Some of the more common mistakes in typography are your text is too close to the edge of the page. Space should be greater. Then space between lines of text. Text too close to other items, graphics, pictures, etc. Text is unreadable over the background. Dark text on dark background, no contrast. Light text over light background, again, no contrast. Text over multicolored colored background. That is simply distracting, whether there's contrast or not. There's multiple colors in the background and you've got this text. It's distracting. There is no way to fix that. The solution is change the background or put a white box overlay on that background where the text is. There is no way to make that text really stand out and make it really readable on a multicolored background without doing one of those things. All caps in your body text. That is generally a bad idea unless you are using those caps for hierarchy. Too many handwritten fonts used. Handwritten fonts are hard to use. That it would be your script fonts. Inconsistent spacing after paragraphs, which means you have X amount of space between this paragraph, but the next paragraph you have 2 times the amount of space. Well, you just broke it apart and made it seem like a totally different section and not simply a new paragraph. You want to make sure your paragraph spacing is even. Too many effects, meaning you use text, blur, shading, blends, bevels, shadows, gradient fills. You've just used too many effects and it all becomes too distracting. You outlined your body text and you put an outline on the words. It makes them very difficult to read, especially it's one thing to do it to your headings when you're large font, but it's another to do it to body text. It's only 12 point or 10 point or 8 point. To put an outline on that makes the text extremely hard to read. It deforms the letters and it just becomes unreadable. Body text too large or too bold. You want to make sure you keep your body text in print design 10 to 11 point. Web design 12 to 14 point. Why? Because on monitor, 14 point resembles what you would see at 11 to 12 point printed on a sheet of paper. Reading stuff on your monitor is a lot harder. So making your text a bit bigger is the solution for helping it be easier to read. That doesn't mean you need to make it gigantic. You don't want to go over 14 point. But otherwise, it starts looking like all your text should be headings. And templates. You can find templates, mock-ups on Google. Since I haven't seen your actual portfolio, I haven't uploaded any templates, but you can find them on Google. You simply go to Google and type in whatever type of mock-up you need. I need a website mock-up. So just type in free website mock-up. It's going to pull up a ton of them. I need a poster mock-up, free poster mock-up. It's going to pull up a ton of them. And you can find the one you want to use. So there is some reading in our course reading materials for lynda.com, and it's on content marketing and crafting your personal brand, that sort of thing. These are some great videos for helping you organize your Behance website and designing a website and starting with themes. You can use your create a portfolio in WordPress. Behance now links to the free portfolio that you can do. Let's see if I can get mine open here. And I will show you the link. Oops, come on. Yes. Okay, so now if I go new share, this is your Creative Cloud desktop app. When you open an app, you can click on Discover. And it will tell you, welcome, blah, blah, blah. And it will give you a feed if you've already set up your Behance account. So used to, you could open everything here. You can't anymore. You have to go to apps. And you have to scroll down and you'll find your Behance link and hit launch. And it will pull up your account. It probably won't bring you straight to your page. It just brings you to the Behance page, but you'll notice over on the left-hand sidebar, right over here, it will say start your website. Build your website in minutes with Adobe Portfolio. This will allow you to set up an actual portfolio website that's a little different than Behance. You can find all kinds of themes and things like that that you can use to set up your portfolio website. That way you have something other than just your Behance portfolio. You actually have a website that has your portfolio on it. And it will go through and rearrange everything for you. You can customize it a little bit and all that kind of stuff, and actually have that secondary portfolio website. Some students prefer to use their Behance account. Others, it's just more professional when you have that portfolio website. It looks more professional than just your Behance account. The website itself looks a lot more professional than the Behance setup because it's an actual website setup and not just Behance. Now, I do not have mine set up so that I can't use this example every time to show students where to find that when they're taking this class. So I haven't set my Adobe Portfolio up. So it's just right there on the left-hand side, and you just click start your website and it will start the website, and it will take everything that's in your Behance portfolio and move it automatically to your website based on the template you chose. So it's really helpful tool, and it's free with your Adobe subscription. So definitely take advantage of that. Now, this is where I would have usually done your portfolio review, and we would have talked about constructive feedback. You know, constructive criticism is the foundation to learning and growing. Throughout your career, you are going to get constructive feedback and criticism. It's not meant to be taken as an attack on you or your design work. If you have a clear rationale for why you think something should not be changed, by all means, email me and we can talk about it professionally. Anytime I ask you to change something in your design or something, it's simply based on, you didn't clearly show one of the design principles, one of your craft principles. There's an alignment issue, or I simply have an idea that will make that design better. It may be that you met all the design criteria, your craft principles are great, your alignment's great, but the design itself, I just don't feel will stand out. And so I have an idea that will make it stand out. Well, I'm going to give you that in my feedback. I'm going to tell you, let's take this design to the next level. Try doing this to it. If you don't agree with something that I said, don't be afraid to say, I don't want to do that because. Don't just tell me you don't want to do that. You're a professional. Give me a reason why you don't want to change that design. There's got to be a reason why you think that it's best this way. Not simply because you simply don't want to change it. That's never going to work in the professional world. And your customers, your employers, They are all going to give you constructive feedback, and none of them are going to accept the answer, I don't want to. So don't expect me to accept that answer. If you don't want to change something, okay, tell me why. Let's talk about it. Revisions. Revisions are not optional. When given suggestions for change, they need to be implemented to strengthen the principles of design, focal point, color theme, etc. If for some reason you disagree with a suggested change, then you just simply need to email me and provide a rationale. I'm open to speaking with you professionally to come up with a solution. My job is to push you to another level as a designer and to get you ready for the web design industry. Your portfolio is one of the most important tools for securing a position in the industry. So paying attention to the small details is very important. Each round of revisions will build upon the last. Do you have passion for web design? Is it your passion? Is it what you want to do? Be honest. To me, graphic design and web design, it's my passion. I love it. I live and breathe it. Whether I'm teaching you guys or working for a client or contracting for a company or expanding my skill set. By working on new techniques and learning new HTML elements and CSS attributes, being in this industry is a continued education. It's not a you learn it all this time and you don't have to ever learn anything again. Wrong. Because technology changes. HTML changes, CSS changes, Java changes, PHP changes. You are going to be learning for as long as you are a web designer. And you're going to have to stay on top of that stuff, which means that you're going to be utilizing YouTube, Firefox Developer, and several other million blogs you can sign up to that give free courses and things like that on the new stuff and new changes that come out in all the programming languages that you use. UI and UX principles change as technology changes, as we get more familiar with what the users truly want. New principles change and come out or added to, and some get taken away, and you have to stay on top of all of that. And the only way to do that is to make sure that you are involved in the community in some way. Sign up for blogs. Firefox Developer is an awesome and free membership, and they give classes all of the time on coding with JavaScript, PHP, HTML, CSS. They give classes on all of it, and the classes are free. So anytime something changes, I get an email that says, hey, you know, PHP just updated, and here are the new tips and tricks. Here are the new statements. Here are the new functions. And you can take this 4-hour class to go over them. And it's free, and I can take the class anytime I want because it's recorded. But it keeps me up to date on the ever-changing world of web design. You know, I still get excited over projects, and I push myself to make sure that things are unique and that I solve the problem in a creative way, and then I end up with a design that I am truly happy with. If I struggle to find an answer, I go out and look at nature, Google, I surf the internet, look at case studies, or watch a movie. Everybody kind of has their own little way to get that creative ball running, to call that muse to you so that you get some inspiration. And you can do that. Go get up from the computer, walk away from the desk, go look at some posters, walk outside, or just simply shut everything down and open your web browser and go to Google and look for some inspiration until you come up with that creative idea. Otherwise, you get burned out. You have to figure out how to trigger those creative ideas when they just don't automatically come. And everybody kind of has their own method. And sometimes it's a combination. I usually start with a Google search. And if I do a Google search and looking for inspiration and nothing is happening there, well, then I know it's time to walk away from my computer. It's time to get up. It's time for a different environment. And I may go outside. Sometimes that means I watch a 30-minute Netflix episode. Sometimes it just means turning my brain off from whatever design project I'm working on at the time. I just need to turn it off. That way, when I switch it back on, it's fresh, and suddenly I have creative ideas. Throughout your design degree program, you have learned many skills. And we have taken you from the student designer to the professional designer. As a student, you have to reach beyond the course content and sharpen your skills by doing outside projects for yourself, friends and family, volunteer organizations. Look for some freelance work. Real world work will always look better in your portfolio. And there are pro bono opportunities everywhere. You can find them on the web. You can contact Career Services. They will help you find a pro bono opportunity. Or maybe you have a organization within your community, a volunteer organization in your community that needs your help. Call them up. Tell them what you do. Tell them you're fresh out of college, that you're looking for a volunteer opportunity where you can utilize your skills. You know, do they need their website updated? Do they need a redesign? Anything like that, and do the project for them. It not only gives you real world practice and communicating with the client, it also gives you something real that is not a school project to put into your portfolio. And doing it after you graduate means that you still have access to the Student Success Center. You still have access to me as your AFPA. So if you run into trouble doing this project, you can get help. Help in the SSC doesn't have to be just on class help. If you're doing a project outside of class, outside of school, and alumni still have access to the SSC, you can go in and actually get help for it. Me as your FPA, once you've graduated, doesn't mean that I'm out of your life forever if you don't want me to be. I had a student just the other day that I met in Zoom because he was working on a web design project and ran into some trouble connecting to his database. Well, I helped him troubleshoot it. We figured it out, and he moved on. I'm absolutely here for you after you graduate. So don't be scared to take on those volunteer opportunities and those pro bono cases. Yep, don't accept a pro bono on JavaScript when you know you don't know JavaScript. Accept the pro bono on stuff that you're comfortable working on. And utilize W3 schools to improve those elements that you know you don't know enough on, like JavaScript or jQuery or PHP or SQL. You know, if you know that you're lacking in those areas, use W3 schools. They have great tutorials that will teach you all of those things. That will teach you Ajax and AngularJS and jQuery and PHP and SQL and everything else you can think of. And I know most of your web design classes, I don't know that there was actually any that taught you how to use jQuery for animation on a website or taught you the CSS animation attributes. Those can all be found on W3 schools, and you can take the tutorials, and it takes you through working them and how to set it up and explains it to you, and then you get the opportunity to practice it right there within the website so that you've done it, because once you do something, you remember it better. The W3 Schools tutorials are great. I've taken them. Some things, you know, it may be years between when I use them, or 6 months, and I haven't used jQuery. And so I'm like, my brain just doesn't want to recall all that information. So I have to go to W3 Schools and look stuff up. Oh yeah, that's how you do that, but I couldn't remember it on my own. As a web designer, you have to create that toolbox for yourself so that you know where to go when you're having problems. And W3 School is the Web Design Bible. Is absolutely everything there on W3 Schools? Not absolutely everything, but just about everything is. If I can't find it on W3 Schools, then I just simply do a Google search for whatever I'm looking for. How do you do this? And it will pull up several links for me to click on where somebody else has asked that question in a blog and someone's answered it. Or here's an article on how to do that, and that sort of thing. So don't be afraid to use those tools, because we all use them. I've been doing this for 10 years. And I still use my toolbox. I still refer to W3 Schools occasionally when I'm looking for something or can't remember exactly what the attribute was called in order to get my text to fade. And so I have to go to W3 Schools and I look it up and say, oh yeah, that's what it was. And then I can move on. We all do those things. There is so much and so many languages that we have to know that it's impossible to remember them all and to remember absolutely 100% of everything that needs to be used in that language, because most likely you didn't actually learn everything that could be done with that language. And so there are going to be times when somebody asks you to do something and you're like, I don't know how to do that. And you have to go and you have to figure it out, because you can't very well tell your customer, I don't know how to do that. I thought you were a web developer. That's exactly what they're going to say. So you have to go to the internet, you have to go to W3 Schools, and you have to figure out how that's done. You have the basics and the basic understanding of how the programs work and the code that's used. You won't have a problem figuring it out, but it is a continued learning process. And you need to start building your toolbox of where to get help now, because it'll make your job much easier. You know that you're going to use the principles of design, and by now these have been beaten into your head, the CRAP principles, and then the same principles in web design. There's a few more in web design that I'm sure you're very familiar with, and those are there. You just have to remember to use them. And a successful design utilizes the principles to convey the message. It helps organize your images, your types, your graphical elements, and that sort of thing. There's a logical flow to every single design. And that means you have to make sure your designs have that logical flow and they are targeted at your target audience. You design based on your target audience. You know that the principles of design are contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity. You know that. You know what contrast is, what repetition is, what proximity is, what alignment is. I have an actual poster of all of these rules on the wall in front of my computer. Why? Because it helps me to see them all the time. I have a poster right beside it that says web design principles and shows me all of those principles. It's great to have a visual reminder, because sometimes we get so zoned in designing that we forget some elements. But when you're glancing up from your computer because your eyes need a break or your hand hurts because you've been using your mouse too long, and you see those posters right there, you remember. So when you look down at that design, you're kind of looking through it, making sure there's nothing wrong. So you haven't missed something or forgotten something. Use those visual reminders. I do. Every single web design company I had ever worked in has these web design posters and graphic design everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's a web design principles, UX principles, UI principles. They're everywhere. Why? Because we all need those reminders, because we all zone in what we're creating and we're forgetting about the principles because we're designing, we're being creative. And so we tend to forget about those principles. And as you know, from having to go back and fix something based off your instructor's feedback, once a design is completed, going back and fixing stuff can be a little harder because you've got text boxes overlaid with graphics and graphics overlaid with text boxes, and things are hard to click, but that needs to be moved because it's off center and it should be centered, and it's hard to get to. So hanging up those reminders around the walls near your computer or where you work will help you remember them while you're designing. And will help you come up with creative ideas when you're struggling. Sometimes I just stare at my poster and think, okay, let's go through these steps. Contrast. How's my color scheme? Let's think about that. I don't have a color scheme yet because I have no idea what I'm doing. So let's see. You know what? Adobe Color is excellent for creative inspiration on your color schemes. Why? Because you can go to Adobe Color and you can explore their color schemes based on keywords. So I am designing a website for a pest company, a pest extermination, an exterminator. That's what I'm designing the website for. And so I'm going to type in the word exterminator. Let's see what colors come up. Do I like any of these? What if I type in pest? And see if I can come up with some sort of inspiration there, which will help with my color scheme. Or maybe they've given me their logo, and I know, of course, I need to brand this website based on the company's branding, which is always the colors in their logo. But their logo is simply black and red. Got one little spot of red in it. It's not overwhelmingly red. It's just got like one little spot of red in it. So I need a color scheme, and I want to find something that contrasts and looks really good. So I go to Adobe Color, and I type in red. And ta-da! It pulls up all kinds of color schemes, from analogous to monochromatic to contrast to simple contrast to complex contrast, and so on and so on. And I can look and think, oh, this one looks really good. I like this. Let's go with the colors of the photos I've seen in his folder. Yep, this is my color scheme. That's how you use those posters, because they will help you work through those creative design issues. You just go through them one at a time. Okay, start with contrast, which means I need a color scheme. And then we go to repetition. What's going to be on this website more than once? Am I going to have a graphic that needs to go from page to page? There's my repetition. Where am I going to put it? Where is it? And suddenly, you're coming up with a creative design idea. You want to make sure that you're checking your alignment. You want to make sure you're strengthening your proximity by reducing space below subheadings in the groups of information, making sure contact information is placed together, making sure to decrease space between bullets and body copy so that you have things grouped the way they should be grouped. So you want to make sure that you're getting all of that stuff. Now then, that is the end of today's lecture, and hopefully by Thursday, you will have sent me a link to your Behance, and I can use Thursday's lecture to go through your Behance portfolio and help you come up with a plan on what needs to be changed or added to it to get you ready for the web design profession. I'll see you later, Susan.